Welcome to worship. Sometimes after Easter, we all feel a little bit kind of down. The excitement is over, and now what? But today we're gathered for worship. The resurrected Christ is still right here with us. And today in this worship, we hope that you're inspired to see the seedlings of resurrection everywhere you look, including the mirror, but also all around you in the world. So, hey, pay attention. We're gathered together for worship. Let's see what the Spirit has for us.
I would sleep on the shore, dream of something more of my life, and all of the open doors I have ignored. Renaissance painting she hangs on the wall of the tree, but nothing is at all as it seems. Holding your hands in the candlelight, slipping away from your gentle eye. Soft hallucinations of your silhouette on pages of my story, tracing out your face, and I can see my own reflections in the dark. At all as it seems. Holding your hands in the candlelight, slipping away from your gentle eye. Soft hallucinations of your silhouette on pages of my story, tracing out your face, and I can see my own reflections in the drawing. Oh, 13 sailboats passing me by, young timid sailor was I would sleep on the shore, dream of something more of my life, and all of the open doors I have ignored.
Scripture reading from the book of First Peter. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And even though you do not see him now, you believe in him and are filled with an inexpressible joy, for you are receiving the goal of your faith, the salvation of your souls.
It is the week after Easter. And then we had the pomp and the circumstance. We had the beauty and the springing. We had the music and the coming together. We've seen people that we normally don't see together. And it's just such a beautiful day. But now we are in the week after Easter. And like in any other time in our lives when there's an exciting event, it can seem like a bit of a downer because the week after Easter, it's just kind of going back to day-to-day life, right? And yet Easter is a season. It's not a day. And this whole season, these days, the great 50 days, that's what they're called in the ancient Christian kind of parlance. These are days in which we're literally walking with the resurrected Jesus. Yes, in the day-to-day life, but with the expectation of what it means to be a people who live into resurrection. So what does it mean to be a people who live into resurrection? This resurrection is about the power of God over death. It's about the power of God over all that is not good for the world. It's about the power of divine life to conquer all things and to set all of humanity and all of creation into the pathway of love and peace and completion. It is about restoration for sure, about what God intended for the world to begin with. And so now we have to take that moment, that Easter moment, that high of the Easter moment, and bring it down to the day-to-day life. And so today, those folks who were hearing this kind of message early on in the community that Peter writes to, it's a message that maybe you and I could hear too, maybe with fresh eyes. Because at the cornerstone of the message that this letter of Peter is, it's about life. What does it mean to live into this life, into resurrected life? And the writer tells us about this living hope that this community has, and how that living hope, based and rooted in the resurrection of Jesus, should guide this community into the future. Now, the writer knows something. The writer knows that this community is struggling in the midst of their day-to-day life. You and I know struggle, don't we? We know what it's like to come off the mountain and get back to the doldrums of the day-to-day. It's part of the human story. Just doesn't have the spark that it normally does when you're in those high moments. I get that sense a few times of the year. One of them is right after Christmas, right? After the beautiful decorations, and the decorations come down and the sanctuary looks kind of sparse and empty. Even around our homes too, right? We decorate and things look so beautiful. This time of the year, it happens again in the church too, right? All the beautiful, the Easter lilies and all the pomp and circumstance no longer there. Kind of every day, ho-hum. Back to the grind. The alarm clock goes off. We have to roll out of bed, go to work, get the kids to school, go to our volunteer assignment. No longer planning for Easter dinner or family coming over. There's something in our lives about that every day. And that every day can be hard. For some of us, harder than for the others. And so it is there that the writer of Peter reminds us of the beauty and power of resurrection. And that beauty and power of resurrection, yes, it happens in this high point in the story of Jesus, but actually it has roots and it lives in each of us after that. So even though it feels like a little bit like the doldrums, the reality of it is that It is here in this earth, in this day-to-day, that resurrection begins to be born anew in us each and every day following this great event. And at the cornerstone, according to this letter of Peter, is the understanding that God, the creator of the universe, of all that is, has given us this gift of resurrection so that we might live, and might live a life of abundance, and might live a life of joy, and might live a life of peace, and might live a life of forgiveness and reconciliation, and that life is rooted in that day-to-day life. So it doesn't matter what is happening in this day-to-day life. God understands what is happening, but we can live into that living hope. And that living hope is the work of salvation in us. That's another interesting word, salvation. Now, there's two major terms for salvation in the New Testament. One is sozo, which means healing. The other one is soter, which means deliverance. In here, in this letter, the word that it's used is soter, is deliverance. So the work of resurrection was part of the work of God in delivering us from the state in which we were in. And often in our day-to-day lives, we're deeply aware of the state that we find ourselves in. Whether that state is kind of boring and apathetic, or that state is self-centered and disconnected, or that state is in a state of kind of struggle and sacrifice, whatever that state is, that the resurrection, the promise of resurrection is that we can be delivered from that state into the state of Easter, into the state of joy and beauty, into the state of wholeness and healing, into the state of freedom. So part of the fruit of resurrection for us in these days is how are we going to live into that resurrection? How are we going to live as freed people to love and reconcile in the world? And it begins in those day-to-day lives with ourselves. How do we live with ourselves in a way that is freeing and liberating? Maybe stopping those constant kind of thoughts that we ruminate on, that put us down and that make us doubt that work in us. Or maybe it's those attitudes that we might have about ourselves and the world. And believe me, I get it. There are constant things that are happening in the world that might make us cynical and angry, and that might make us doubt even the existence of God in the world. I get all that. So the work of resurrection, the sealing of resurrection, reminds us this is the fertile soil in the day-to-day life that we have been delivered, that we have a living hope, that this faith of ours, this commitment that we've made, this thing we have given our lives over to, this thing actually does indeed continue to transform us. In fact, one of the huge kind of shifts in my own heart and life was the recognition long ago that salvation, this deliverance, this healing that's happening within me, it's not just a one-time event, but it's a process over time. And so I'm still living into that process, and you're still living into that process. This is why we need Easter year to year. This is why we go through the rounds of the story of Jesus year to year, because that living hope, it's working itself out in that day-to-day life, each and every day, over time. Now, the goal is that over time we are indeed more loving, we are indeed more kind, we're indeed more forgiving, we are more free to live into abundance in our lives and in the life of neighbor over time. But it begins with our agency, with a decision we make to live into that reality in our day-to-day lives. And so my prayer in these days is that you're living into that resurrection power, that you allow the beauty and the joy and the high point of Easter to really inspire you to continue to be delivered, to continue to give your life to this way of Jesus that we talk so much about, and that you allow that to be born deep within your soul. And so when negativity and cynicism, when when strife and struggle happen, you remind yourself that you're living in light of resurrection. And the story of Jesus has all these encounters, around this resurrection that happens, about disciples that are trying to figure out their new way, about encounters with the resurrected Lord that are so unbelievable that we take a step back, about the reminder that these disciples get from the resurrected Lord that they are now the bearers of the work of Jesus in the world, which means that you and I are the bearers of the work of Jesus in the world. See, when we are made aware of these things, we are being reminded that you and I together, we together as a community of disciples in a post-resurrection reality, are given by the power of the Spirit what we need to live into that living hope, to live into that salvation, not just for each of us individually, certainly for that, but for the world. And it begins in the midst of our day-to-day life, no matter what is happening, no matter what is going on in our lives. We beloved ones, with the seedlings of Easter within our souls. So people of God, pay attention to the movements that are still springing forth within you. That love, that possibility, that hope, that's Easter in you. So pay attention to it, water it, and let it grow in you in the midst of your day-to-day life. And in there, you too are being delivered. You too are being transformed. You too are being made more into the image of the Christ that lives within you. And can you imagine the power of that? If all of us together practice that right there in the midst of the day-to-day life. Salvation, the resurrected power in you in these days ahead. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Our hope is that this digital worship will help you focus on what matters most in life, will help you be just a little more peaceful, gentle even. Because if you're more centered, if you're more peaceful, you will be a gift to others. God bless you this week.